Hello, and welcome to the first podcast of The World of Wilson. I am Wilson Cubicle, and some of you may remember me from my humble beginnings as a styrofoam cutout on the office wall of the corporate world. I have been traveling around the state of Texas, finding and talking to some fascinating people who do some fascinating things. Some are just more fascinating than others. Those of you who are with me from the beginning will find that I am still in search of all things positive. If you are fascinating or positive, or you know somebody fascinating or positive, then you will fit in fine here. If you don't know anybody fascinating or positive, that is okay too. I am positive you may learn something from listening in. Today, I will be talking to self-published author from the Woodlands, Dan Flores, and his wife, Lisa. Dan wrote a memoir of his year-long tour of duty in Afghanistan in the book South of Heaven. But first, while we are talking about military service, I would like to read a letter I got in from a mother who is sending her son to boot camp soon. She writes, "In a few short weeks, my only son will leave Texas, his friends, and his family, and will begin his life as a sailor in the United States Navy. As our family counts down the final weeks of his childhood, I begin to wonder, have I taught him everything I can about how to be a man? Now, as his mother, I can assure you I know nothing about what it takes to be a man. It was hard enough to teach him how to use the bathroom standing up, and much more effort went in to talk to him about what certain body parts were for and why they kept changing sizes. Sure, some of the male topics were difficult to discuss, but on the day he was born, I promised myself I would raise him to be a good man. I had only 18 years to do it in. My job as a parent had one specific goal in mind. I wanted to raise my children in such a way that when they were ready to leave home, they left successfully. In other words, I didn't want them to move back in with me. Not many of my high school friends understood what I meant back then, but today, some of the same ones complain about their child who has no ambition or lacks respect. Some of the kids not only have stayed at home, but have also moved in their girlfriend and their girlfriend's kids as well. Maybe I have been a hard mother, but I have always loved the story about teaching a man to fish and he will feed himself. My son's father wanted no part of my son's life, so I knew from the beginning it was my job to make my young child a man. It was going to be a hard life. I needed to teach my son to fish. Over the years, I have wondered what kind of qualities I wanted my son to have. What kind of qualities would his future family see in him? And what kind of husband would he make? And would he be a good dad someday? The strange thing about kids is that you can't just plug in the qualities you want them to keep. Kids are a little like a garden in the spring. Everybody is so hopeful you can just put a seed in the ground and that is it. There is more work than that if you want a good harvest. Watering and weeding, killing bugs, and making supports is the only start, the beginning. One needs to tend the garden, and I needed to tend to my child. My job of raising my son is almost over, and I can find myself trying to cram in any advice I think he may need in his future. Does he know how bad credit cards can be? Yes, Mom. Oh, don't forget to open the door for girls. Always, Mom. Oh, and always be mindful that you don't swear in front of women, children, or your elders. Of course, Mom. As I sit here, thinking of my son's future and my past with him, I can only hope that I have done right by him. The choices he makes once he leaves will be his from now on. I will no longer be raising a boy. I will simply be a mother to a man. and he will be a United States Navy sailor. Wow! I hope that everybody can appreciate the work of the sailors, the soldiers, and the Marines, along with the sacrifices of their families. Dan Flores wrote South of Heaven as a memoir to his family and compiled video and audio footage he captured of actual battles he fought from his Apache helicopter. Next, we will hear readings from both Dan Flores and his wife, Lisa, on their experience of what life was like for Lisa as she was left alone raising their 2 kids, and when Dan was able to come home for 2 weeks during his mid-tour break.